You know you're capable and smart, so why do less intelligent people keep moving ahead of you? You've got notebooks full of ideas and plans, but no real progress is happening. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why your intelligence is sabotaging you and a strategic way you can finally start moving that should work for you specifically. And it's a process I've successfully used with hundreds of people. So these are lots of clients I've worked with over the years. But first, a quick question for you. Where are you on this line? I want you to imagine this is intelligence here, and this is what I like to call analytical horsepower. As intelligence increases, people are able to see opportunities, have more ideas, and have unique angles on topics that others don't. So you may feel like you're somewhere up here. Now, if you're watching this video, this is probably where you consider yourself. The more capable, intelligent, whatever word you want to use here, the better. You're able to spot more opportunities, and that helps with your progress. But there's a problem. There's this other side that also changes as you become more intelligent. It's the ability to see risks with any of these ideas and opportunities. But the real problem is that it's often more than the benefit you get from this. It would be a bit like pressing the gas or accelerator pedal, but your foot on the brake pedal is at least twice as strong. So it can make the car go nowhere the more intelligent you get. So just to illustrate this, I want you to imagine this. This is the resistance you feel. So as you become more intelligent, what happens? Well, you are able to see more risks. You create these worst case scenarios. You can see all of the failure points. Now, I think this is quite interesting because this actually does require quite a lot of deep thinking and reflection, because to simulate worst case scenarios, you often need to play out the whole journey in your mind. That's why at the beginning sometimes it's a bit slow to start here, but then as you become more intelligent, you can start constructing these narratives and these worldviews, and you can start seeing where the failure points will happen. So it's actually quite a useful skill if you're trying to mitigate risks in other places. But if you're trying to work on your personal goals, it can often do the opposite. What we have here is, if we cross those two graphs, so resistance and this analytical horsepower, so capability, we get this. So at the beginning, increasing intelligence is beneficial because you may not have realized all of the downsides to whatever opportunities you're thinking about pursuing. But at some point, you become really, really good at doing that. And then it overtakes it. And so then you end up with this bit. So as long as the red line, which is this resistance factor, or pressing the brake pedal, is above the green line, it will always end up in you being in a state of inaction and experiencing paralysis. So ironically, your greatest strength, this ability to risk assess and strategic thinking and deep thinking, it actually becomes your trap, because we want to make progress. We want to make the car move, but that's not possible in this sense. The more clearly you see all of these potential risks, the more overwhelming and paralyzing action becomes. So the smarter and more analytical you become, paradoxically, the less net forward movement you're able to achieve. So at this point, doubts usually set in. There's too much to do. I don't know enough. Maybe I just can't do any of this. This is why you feel trapped, despite knowing you're intelligent and capable, that's meant to say. Okay, conversely, if you imagine what other people like, these maybe less capable people or less intelligent, well, what can often happen is this. This is them here. And if they're somewhere here, so this is you over here, I've grayed it out. What happens is they have this ability to move forward, so a moderate amount of intelligence. And we can say below here, this means that there's low ability to see risk. And it's this feeling of ignorance is bliss. Now, you may well have come across people like this. But the reality is it's a more simple way of being, but it's incredibly effective because they end up trying things and actually pursuing stuff and learning at a faster rate. So you end up with this really funny situation where If you happen to be in this category of kind of mind, you actually will learn a lot more from real world experience. So you can often end up in much better scenarios. And I definitely met people like this, and some people had definitely kind of told me that they don't classify themselves as very intelligent, and they're happy to say it because they're really successful. Yeah, and if you're thinking about success versus intelligence, I think that's where you can see this discrepancy, and it's something that used to really bother me. So part 1, leveraging your brain. Okay, let's assume you are somewhere up here, right? Great for intelligence, but not very good in terms of progress and being able to achieve anything. So you're in a state of inaction and paralysis. Well, we don't really want to change the green line, but can we change the red line? The goal is, can we get it down here? Can we achieve a lower risk response to whatever we're dealing with? And how do we do this? Leveraging your deep thinking. What we can try and do is redirect your brain power. So rather than thinking all about the risks, we want to create strategically low risk but high impact moves. We have to remember, your strength is this ability to strategically think. The problem is it's been kind of unguided, and it's just, you've let it roam free, and it now just classifies all of these really bad scenarios. So rather than just thinking this idea of small steps, which is the really common advice, which is actually true, we can take it one step further. We can take that, small steps, but we strategically choose these tiny moves or small steps that carry minimal downside risk, but offer clear insights or momentum. If you're playing a board game, it's kind of thinking like, for each roll, how can you throw a 6? The whole point is you can strategically think, right? So you have the ability to figure this out. This is something I really, really struggled with, because I was so scared of trying anything, because all I could see were all of the ways things would go wrong. So to illustrate this, I've got a little concept. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, I'll put a link somewhere, and I'll show you about that, and I'll show you about it later. I call it Ollie the Octopus. Now, I'll give you a brief overview of the whole concept. If you imagine an octopus trying to navigate through the world, what it does is it doesn't just jump. It sends one tentacle across, and then it slowly gets more tentacles across, and then it gets to the other side. But it does this really, really fast, and it does it continuously. What is so useful about this? Well, it's actually it's quite an interesting system. So octopus, that mode of movement is really, really clever, because what it does is it allows it to find out what's on the other side, right? Low risk, data gathering. So it's kind of sensing, it's throwing its one tentacle across, and if it gets chopped off, it will still survive, because the head, the brain, and all the rest of its body is on this side. You can still maintain progress while remaining safe. So there's this optimized scenario here. So what we have is safety and progress. An octopus has evolved for, I'm sure it's millions of years, in this way. We know it as a very intelligent creature. So your analytical mind is perfect for this type of modeling. This is something that took me a really, really long time, because I just kept getting it wrong. Now just remember this, the octopus only learns when a tentacle moves. It doesn't think about moving the tentacle, it moves it. Again, I'll link it to the other video where I actually show you a video of a real octopus. The idea here is we want to make things psychologically safe. No overwhelm. They have to be within our capability. But to figure that out requires a little bit of planning and a bit of strategy, right? Because you have to figure out what your constraints are, and maybe how to change the constraints to make your next step or your next test feel safe. And it's the concept of feeling safe. So we want to use this first tentacle approach. I do this with every client, because this is something that this is the one factor that stopped me. I knew I needed to make steps, but I just couldn't get myself to do it, because everything just always felt too overwhelming. So once I figured out this kind of model for myself, this is something that, it's so interesting. Each client has a different mental model of risk. And so we have to figure out what size next step will make sense specifically and uniquely to their mind. It's always different, because some people have fear is all relative, and fear is often based from experience, and also how many times how creative your worst case scenarios can get. Anyway, a full breakdown of how to do this, is in my other video. I'll link it somewhere here. This is really important. Your brain will only lower resistance, so this resistance to you taking action, once your strategic actions feel genuinely safe. Now, the reason I mention this is why there's a big disconnection with when you watch YouTube videos or, I don't know, anything on the internet giving advice about what to do. If someone has done it and they have done it thousands of times, their brain has already learned through experience that it is safe for them to do this maybe bold task. But for you, your tentacle, you've not put a tentacle across, so your brain has not had that experience yet. It doesn't have that as a currency. So what they are telling you is based on their level of experience where they already feel safe. We have to generate that scenario for you. It's difficult at the beginning, and we may need to scale it back, right? And this is where the small steps is also relative. A small step to someone with lots of experience is one thing. A small step to someone who's never taken a small step will look like something else. It will be, let's talk about the octopus. It will be similar to an octopus which can jump from rock to rock, right, on a beach or something like that, versus an octopus that has never been, hasn't moved much at all. It was a little baby octopus and is looking to make its first moves. It will be much more careful, and as it learns more about the world and what is safe and what is not, it can be more bold with its moves. Here are some examples. If you're presenting, maybe you want to present to a friend, right? Rather than going straight into your presentation. And, the other examples people use are presenting. If you've got to present to 50 or 100 people, maybe you present to 10 people or 20 people. That could be a first step for someone who has experience and maybe is more bold. But even that step could be too big for where you are right now. Now, the only reason I mention this is because I've actually had this with certain clients, and we've had to scale it back so much, where they have just been in a one-on-one with a really close colleague, practicing their presentation with them, and then we scaled it to 2 people, and then 3 people, and then we slowly extended it rapidly. But we had to figure out how to do this to make it psychologically safe for them. Otherwise, they would just procrastinate and avoid doing it altogether. And then they suddenly have to present to 50 or 100 people, and now they're just way too anxious to perform well. Same thing with here. When I've had people wanted to start a new business or start a new service offering, some people will hear the advice about you need to charge your worth. If you've been working like this, you should charge your new worth. The problem with that is that's all well and good on paper, but if you now feel a lot of pressure to do it, you may not feel that kind of psychological safety there. So an example would be this is where you might want to offer something for free, not because you're reducing your worth, it's to increase your psychological safety, right? To build up an evidence base that you can actually make this step. Same thing for rehearsing sales calls. I do this a lot. So people want to jump into sales calls and sell maybe even high ticket clients straight off, and have had no experience. That can be really, really daunting for people. And this is where I've practiced with people on the other end of that and practicing being a prospect for someone. But it's the same thing. You can do it with a friend or find someone to speak to or rehearse it. And if you need to do this by yourself, you can practice this with ChatGPT or something. It doesn't matter, right? The point is you have to figure out what is going to be your equivalent of a first tentacle. Oh yeah, this is the last one. This is one that I used to do. So, a no record video. I was so scared of posting videos. When I used to watch Gary Vaynerchuk and he would say you need to be posting a minimum of 3 to 5 times a day, I just froze and I would just avoid everything to do with posting content because it was too much. My brain would just shut down. It was only until I started employing this process where I was so afraid of shooting videos. I had a phobia of looking at the glass lens and the red light. What I did is I would have my phone set up in my car, so I had to focus on driving, and I would have it facing me, just looking at me, and then I would talk. I wasn't even recording. And then eventually a next tentacle was I'd actually record it. I'm not looking at the camera, I'm just looking. The reason I put it in my car is because I'm forced to focus on where I'm driving, so I couldn't be distracted by my phone. So these were the steps that I built for myself to figure out how to shoot content of myself. Okay, client example, quickly. Joe, extremely capable, but no progress on his goals for over 10 years. Really wanted to get in front of the camera. Had a really big fear of judgment and failure and needed very incremental steps. Eventually, we were able to build this little process for him, and it was kind of similar to mine, and we made it really small. The videos were sent to me first before sending it out onto social media. Yeah, so videos were sent to me, and then we kind of reviewed them before they were put on social media. And once he heard some validation come back that, hey, that video is good to go, right? That's sometimes all we needed. And now he gets to post really cool content and actually live much closer to the life that he wants to live. And it was all because of that initial break point. Most people know what to do. They just have the inability to execute on what they know they need to do. For some people, especially these people who are more ambitious and overthink and ruminate. So, Joe's a good example. He would construct all of these ways people would judge him and how it would be perceived badly. Yeah. And so he earns an income from this now, which is absolutely amazing, and does lots of really great videos. And he's been wanting to do this for over a decade. Very similar to me. So the bottom line is your brain isn't broken. It's strategic, and we need to use it to your advantage. It hesitates for very rational reasons. The real secret is this: the more strategically small and safe moves you make, the more capable your brain realizes you actually are. Every tiny move proves hesitation wrong. So that's why those small steps are important, but we want to scale them up over time. Quietly and powerfully, you will reshape your confidence. I promise you. I've seen this. Well, it happened to me firsthand. I mean, that's why I'm on here talking now. But it's also helped hundreds of people. And the only reason I'm sharing a lot of this now is because I need to kind of check whether these ideas were true after I'd worked with a really diverse set of people. And what it's saying behind this, behind my picture here is, you can do all of this without ever needing this really loud motivation. Okay. It is much easier when your brain feels like something is possible. Okay, I hope that was useful, and I'll see you in the next video.